The school hallway smelled like bleach and cheap perfume when Rafi pushed his mop past the lockers. He wasn't supposed to notice the whispers, but today he did. His son's backpack was on the floor, torn open, books scattered everywhere. A few steps away stood Adam, the Mafia boss's son, laughing with his friends. Rafi froze. His hands shook, not from fear, but from something older, buried deep. He had promised never to lose control again, never to go back to the man he once was. But when he saw the bruise on his boy's neck, that promise started to crack. Rafi's mop squeaked against the polished floor as students rushed past him, barely noticing the janitor who kept their world spotless. He had learned to fade into the background, to be invisible. But that morning, when he saw Amir wiping his tears by the lockers, invisibility felt like failure. His chest tightened as he picked up the fallen books, each one soaked at the edges. He told his son to keep his head high, yet even as he spoke, he wondered if he still believed that himself. The school was one of those old private buildings with marble floors and peeling ceilings. The children of the rich filled its halls, their laughter echoing louder than the school bell. Rafi worked double shifts to afford Amir's scholarship here. He wanted his boy to have what he never did. A clean start, a better life. But the more Rafi cleaned those floors, the more he realized money didn't wash away cruelty. It just made people bolder about it. During lunch, Rafi pushed his cart near the cafeteria, pretending to mop while keeping an eye on Amir. Adam sat with his usual group, throwing fries and laughing. Rafi saw Amir sitting alone at a corner table, pretending to study. He felt something twist inside him. He had once known boys like Adam, rich, untouchable, protected by their father's names. He used to be the man who kept them safe, before he became a ghost in a blue uniform. Later that day, when the classrooms emptied, Rafi found Amir's backpack dumped in a puddle behind the gym. The zipper was broken, pages torn. He bent down, water soaking through his knees, and picked it up. On the wall behind it, someone had drawn a crude crown and written King Adam rules. He knew who did it. Everyone did. The silence that followed hurt more than the act itself. People saw. No one cared. Rafi didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table, repairing the torn bag with old thread. His hands shook as he stitched. Every pull of the needle reminded him of a scar he'd left behind years ago, a life filled with fists, guns, and loyalty bought with fear. He had buried that part of himself when Amir was born. But tonight, that old self felt close again, waiting at the edge of his thoughts, whispering that silence was weakness. The next morning, Rafi arrived early. The hallways were quiet, except for the faint hum of lights and the echo of a dripping faucet. On Amir's locker, written in thick black marker, were the words "Stay in your place." He stood there for a long time, staring. He could clean it up easily, just a few wipes, and it would vanish like nothing happened. But deep down, he knew cleaning this message wouldn't erase what it meant. When Amir saw it, he froze, his small hands clenched into fists, then slowly relaxed. "Don't worry about it," Rafi said softly, his voice almost steady. "People like that only win if you react." But as the words left his mouth, he hated himself for saying them, because he knew he was lying. Sometimes silence didn't protect you. It only told bullies that you wouldn't fight back. The teachers noticed but pretended not to. Everyone knew Adam's father, Mr. Marino. He donated to the school every year, built the new library, and controlled half the city. No one wanted to cross him. Rafi mopped the floors outside the staff room that day, listening to their laughter. They spoke about school funding and upcoming events, but never about justice. It reminded him that power wasn't just money, it was comfort, and he had neither. That evening, Rafi found Amir sitting silently at home, staring at his plate. The boy hadn't touched his food. His eyes looked tired, not just from the day, but from carrying the weight of being different. Rafi wanted to say something strong, something that would make his son believe again. Instead, he placed a hand on Amir's shoulder and said, "Tomorrow will be better." It was a promise he didn't fully trust anymore. The next morning, the bullying got worse. Someone tripped Amir in the hallway, while others laughed. Rafi saw it from the end of the corridor, but couldn't move fast enough. When Amir looked up, his eyes met his father's across the floor. The look broke something inside. Rafi, he wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was a father watching history repeat itself, one bruise, one insult at a time. Rafi went to the principal's office after lunch. He explained what had been happening, every detail. The principal leaned back, gave a polite smile and said, "Boys will be boys, Mr. Rafi. It's best not to escalate things." Rafi left the office with his fists tight, feeling smaller than when he entered. The system protected the powerful, just like it always had. But this time, the victim was his son. Amir started skipping lunch. He stayed in the library during breaks, pretending to read. Rafi noticed his grades slipping, his silence growing heavier each day. At night, Rafi sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker. He told himself patience was strength. But it was starting to feel like surrender. The boy he had worked so hard to protect was breaking, and Rafi was doing nothing to stop it. Rafi began working near Adam's group. More often, he would clean the same hallways, mop near their hangouts, quietly watching. One day, he heard Adam call Amir trash. His voice loud and sharp. The laughter that followed cut deep. Rafi gripped the mop handle so tight it creaked. He forced himself to keep working. He had sworn never to go back to violence. But for the first time in years, his hands remembered what it felt like to fight. He found himself thinking about the past more often now. The men he once worked for, the blood he'd cleaned that wasn't his, the night he decided to run. He had promised his wife before she died that he'd never bring that darkness into Amir's life. He had kept that promise, until now. Because now, that same darkness was coming for his son instead. After school, Rafi caught a glimpse of Adam standing beside his black car, talking on the phone. He looked too confident for a kid. Rafi recognized the arrogance. It was the same tone his old boss used when ordering fear. He realized then that Adam wasn't cruel by accident. He was learning it from home. That night, Rafi dreamed of the old warehouse where he used to work, voices echoing, smoke filling the air, money changing hands. He woke up sweating, the sound of a distant bell still ringing in his head. He hadn't heard that sound in years. It reminded him of the night everything changed, when he turned his back on that world and vanished. He thought he'd buried it for good. The next day, Rafi noticed a strange tension in the air. Students whispered more than usual. Teachers seemed distracted. Around noon, the fire alarm suddenly blared through the halls. Panic spread. Kids screamed. Smoke filled the air. Rafi dropped his mop and ran toward the noise. He didn't know why, but his heart told him Amir was in trouble. Through the thick haze, Rafi heard Amir's voice calling faintly for help. He followed the sound to the storage room near the gym. The door was locked from the outside. Without thinking, he kicked it open. Amir was inside, coughing and scared. Rafi pulled him close and carried him out through the smoke, ignoring the alarm and shouting around them. He didn't care who saw. All that mattered was his son's heartbeat. Later, as everyone gathered outside, Adam laughed with his friends, bragging about how funny the alarm prank had been. No one said a word against him. The teachers even smiled weakly, relieved no one was hurt. Rafi stood nearby, holding Amir's hand, feeling a cold anger grow deeper than any he'd felt in years. He knew then this wasn't going to stop on its own. That night, Rafi sat with Amir asleep beside him. He looked around their small apartment, the flickering lamp, the hum of the fridge, the quiet safety he'd built. He realized that safety meant nothing if he couldn't protect his son inside it. He looked at the calluses on his hands, the same ones that once held a gun, and wondered how far he'd go this time to defend his family. The next morning, rumors spread through the school that Adam had pulled the alarm for fun. No one cared about who got hurt. The janitor and his son were just collateral in someone's amusement. Rafi overheard students laughing about it while cleaning the cafeteria. Every word hit like a small knife. He knew this wasn't just bullying anymore, it was a message. When Rafi returned to his locker that day, he found a small envelope taped to it. Inside was an old bus ticket from 1999, the same year he ran from the Mafia. His stomach dropped. Only one person could have known about that. He stared at the worn paper, trembling as the memory of that night flooded back, the night he chose to disappear. Someone had found him. He turned the ticket over and saw a single word written in bold ink. Run. The handwriting was familiar. Mr. Marino's. The Mafia boss knew exactly where he was. Rafi realized then that Adam's behavior wasn't random. It was permission, a game passed down from father to son. The message wasn't about Amir, it was about reminding Rafi that he would never escape his past. From that day, the bullying became open and cruel. Adam tripped Amir in the halls, threw his lunch away, spread lies about him online. Teachers still stayed quiet. Amir stopped talking altogether. Rafi saw the fear in his boy's eyes and recognized it. It was the same fear he once carried. And with that recognition came a dangerous thought. What if his silence made him no better than the people he once fled? That night, Rafi stood by the window watching rain slide down the glass. He made a choice. Tomorrow he would stop hiding. He would confront Adam's father face to face. Not as a janitor, not as a ghost from the past, but as a father who had nothing left to lose. For the first time in years, the old fire returned to his eyes. He was done being invisible. The next morning, the school hosted its annual fundraiser. Expensive cars filled the parking lot, and men in suits shook hands under bright banners. Rafi pushed his mop bucket through the hallways, pretending to be invisible again. But this time, he wasn't cleaning. He was watching. He spotted Mr. Marino near the stage, laughing with the principal. The man looked older, but his confidence hadn't aged a day. Rafi's heartbeat quickened. He knew this was his only chance to look the devil in the eye after all these years. When the crowd thinned, Rafi approached Marino quietly. For a moment, Marino didn't recognize him. Then his smile faded. "You," he muttered, as if seeing a ghost. Rafi kept his tone steady, polite even. He reminded Marino of the time he'd saved his life years ago, taking the blame for a deal gone wrong. Marino looked amused, not grateful. "You should have stayed gone," he said coldly, before walking away. That one sentence hit harder than any threat. It confirmed that the past was no longer behind Rafi. It was here. Rafi spent the rest of the day cleaning the auditorium after everyone left. He didn't feel fear anymore, only clarity. The old man's arrogance told him everything. Marino still believed Rafi was powerless, still thought he could scare him into silence. But Rafi wasn't the same man who ran away in 1999. He had a son now, and nothing in this world frightened him more than losing that boy. The decision formed quietly in his mind. He wouldn't run this time. That night, the rain returned. The sound against the window felt heavier than usual. Rafi sat alone at the table with a small notebook, writing names he remembered, people still loyal to Marino. He didn't plan on revenge. He planned on truth. He wanted evidence, something that would make the police listen when he finally spoke. But when he looked at Amir sleeping on the couch, a darker thought whispered, what if truth wasn't enough against men like Marino? The next morning, Rafi cleaned near the gym while the rain kept falling outside. He paused for a moment, leaning on his mop, just listening to the sound of it hitting the roof. The smell of wet pavement drifted in through the open doors. It reminded him of the night he first ran away. Same rain, same fear, same hope that he could start over. But starting over never truly erased what came before. You could change your name, your job, your life, but not your past. That afternoon, Amir didn't come home from school. His phone went straight to voicemail. Panic hit Rafi like a wave. He called the school, but no one had seen him since lunch. His legs went numb. He checked the park, the nearby stores, every corner of the campus. Finally, near the playground fence, he found Amir's phone lying in the mud, its screen cracked. His hands shook as he picked it up. Something deep inside him snapped. The quiet, controlled man was gone. Rafi drove through the night, retracing old instincts he hadn't used in years. He noticed details most people ignored. fresh tire marks by the field, a broken lock on the back gate. He followed his gut to a nearby street where Adam's friends often met after school. The fear had turned into cold focus now. He knew how to hunt men like these, because once he had been one of them. He found a small garage behind an old house, its lights still on. Inside, the smell of gasoline mixed with cheap cologne. Rafi peeked through the window and saw Amir's torn jacket hanging on a hook. His breath caught. He stepped back, realizing the truth. This wasn't just a prank anymore. They had taken his boy to send a message. His pulse pounded. The years of restraint melted away. The man he once was began to wake up again. He went to the police that night, desperate but calm. He explained everything, every threat, every bruise. The officer nodded, made a few notes, and promised to look into it. Rafi could see it in his eyes. This wasn't going anywhere. The Marinos had friends everywhere. Walking out of the station, he felt the same hopelessness he'd felt years ago when he realized justice didn't work the same for everyone. Only this time, the cost was his son. He returned home, sat in the dark, and opened a small metal box under his bed. Inside were old photos, a folded paper, and a tiny flash drive, his insurance from years ago. Records of Marino's crimes, hidden away for safety. He had never planned to use it. But now, he saw no choice. He whispered a promise to his wife's photo on the wall. "I'll end this." And for the first time in years, he truly meant it. If you think Rafi's fight is over, you're wrong. This is only where his past begins to speak again. Late that night, Rafi parked outside Marino's mansion. The place looked the same as it did years ago, tall iron gates, guards by the door, expensive silence everywhere. He slipped through a side path he remembered from his old days. The air smelled like rain and earth. Every step brought back memories he wished he'd buried. He wasn't here to kill. He was here to take his son home and end this story once and for all. Inside, the lights were dim. Rafi moved through the kitchen quietly, past the hall where portraits of the Marino family hung on the walls. He reached the basement door, cracked it open, and heard a soft sound, a muffled cry. Amir sat tied to a chair, eyes wide but unharmed. Rafi ran to him, cutting the ropes with a blade he'd carried for years, but hoped never to use again. Relief washed through him, but it didn't last. Behind him, a voice spoke. Adam stood there, holding his phone up, recording. His smirk looked too familiar. It was his father's smirk. "Smile, Janitor," he said. Rafi's blood went cold. Adam wasn't afraid. He was performing. He wanted Rafi angry. Wanted to show the world the criminal his father always claimed he was. Amir looked terrified, whispering his father's name. Rafi raised his hand slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about ending the cycle that had ruined too many lives. Marino's footsteps echoed down the stairs. A moment later, he looked calm, like this was just business. "You should have stayed gone," he said again, eyes fixed on Rafi. "I told my son who you were, a man who betrayed his family. Now look at you." Rafi felt a sharp ache in his chest. The truth was, Marino had planned this. He wanted Rafi back in his world, humiliated and broken. But Rafi had come prepared. The flash drive was already hidden in his pocket. Rafi told Amir to run. The boy hesitated, tears in his eyes, but Rafi gave him a look that said everything. As Amir slipped past Adam, Rafi turned to face Marino. "You think I came here to fight?" he said quietly. "I came here to finish what you started." He placed a small recorder on the table. It blinked red, recording everything. Marino froze for a moment, realizing too late that Rafi hadn't come alone in spirit. He had the truth on his side. Marino lunged forward, trying to grab the recorder, but Rafi stepped back. His calm scared the old man more than any weapon could. "You can't hide forever," Marino hissed. "People like me never fall." Rafi almost smiled. "Then you should have never taught me how you rise," he said. At that moment, Rafi pressed a button on his phone. The data on the flash drive sent automatically to the police and a journalist he once trusted. The walls around Marino began to crumble in silence. Adam's expression changed from arrogance to confusion as sirens echoed faintly in the distance. He looked at his father, then at Rafi, not understanding what was happening. For the first time, the boy's power meant nothing. Rafi saw the fear in him, the same fear that had once lived in his own reflection. He didn't feel victory, only sadness. A child had learned cruelty from the man who called himself a father. The cycle was ending tonight, but not without scars. The police arrived minutes later. Marino tried to talk his way out, but the officers already had the recordings, the files, the proof. Adam was pulled aside, confused and pale. Rafi stood quietly in the corner, holding Amir close. He didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. He had done what he had to do. And as the flashing lights filled the mansion, he realized that the sound of sirens no longer scared him. It sounded like peace. When it was over, Rafi gave his statement and walked outside into the dawn air. He felt older but lighter. The world hadn't changed overnight, but something inside him had. He had faced the past without running. As he stood near the gates, he looked back once and saw Adam sitting in a police car, staring blankly at the ground. Rafi almost pitied him. The boy was just a reflection of his father's poison. By morning, the story hit the news. Mafia empire, exposed by former insider. They didn't name him, but Rafi knew the world would guess. It didn't matter. For the first time in years, he didn't care who knew who he was. He had spent too long hiding from his own shadow. Now, that shadow had done something right. The truth had cost him his peace, but it gave Amir a future. That was enough. Adam was expelled from school. His father faced trial. The Marino name lost its power overnight. Rafi returned to the same school a week later, pushing the mop again. Some of the teachers looked at him differently now, quietly respectful, maybe even guilty. He didn't want praise. He just wanted normal days. The sound of the mop sliding across the floor felt like closure, simple, quiet, human. After work, Rafi sat on the front steps of the school, watching the sunrise. The courtyard smelled of wet grass and chalk dust. Amir joined him with 2 cups of tea, handing one over without a word. They sat in silence, the kind that heals instead of hurts. The boy leaned his head on his father's shoulder. Rafi closed his eyes and let the warmth of the morning touch his face. News vans came and went, chasing headlines. The world would forget soon enough. But Rafi didn't need them to remember. He looked at Amir's tired eyes and knew what mattered most wasn't revenge. It was teaching his son that fear didn't have to define him, that sometimes doing the right thing wasn't clean or easy, but it was still worth it. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that only comes after surviving something you never thought you would. The next week, Rafi went back to his old routine. Mopple bucket, halls, silence. But now, the silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. He watched Amir laughing with a few classmates by the lockers, the same place where the bruise had once started it all. Rafi's chest felt lighter. He didn't erase his past. He just learned to live beside it. That was his real victory. As the final bell rang, the sound echoed through the halls, clear and calm. Rafi leaned on his mop and smiled softly. The same bell that once reminded him of endings now felt like a beginning. Outside, the sky cleared after days of rain. He stepped into the sunlight with Amir beside him. The world wasn't perfect, but it was honest again. And for a man like Rafi, that was more than enough.